It's time for your weekly dose of movie news, reviews, and the occasional rumor. Here's your host, Todd Vandenberg, Lee Vowell, and Rob Steele. This is Cinema Savants. And coming up in this week's show, it's the end of Arrow, the return of Star Trek, and will we ever see a new and original TV series again? It's a question that's been on my mind a lot, and I suspect we might not, but first let's kick off with Comcast, 20th century, 21st century, 27,000th century Fox, and Disney. Because Comcast upped Disney's bid, and then Disney upped their bid over Comcast to get the 21st Century Fox library, and I am disturbed by the way ABC is covering this.
How are they covering it?
Because there's an article. I have pulled this up on ABC News. The headline of the article is, Disney ups 21st Century Fox to more than $70.3 billion. The first line of the article is, Disney is offering more than $71 billion. 70.3 is not more than 71.
It's the new math.
As if the new Common Core, that's what it is. It's Common Core math. That's
or maybe it's just bad math. I think it's more likely just bad math, yeah.
I think it's somebody didn't bother to proofread this before they sent it out. Anyway.
Yeah.
Good for Disney. Better for Fox. What a shame Comcast is going to have to spend money like that on, something like customer service to get people behind them again. Methinks that's where I'm going with it anyway. You have any comments on this? Because that's our big business news of the week.
Disney owns them, so you'd think that they would want them to get the story right.
I would think. Yeah, they own ABC.
Kind of weird. So
yeah. Well,
maybe that's up there with disinformation. Maybe they're trying to trick Comcast into going higher, and then they're going to duck out and laugh. Hopefully not, because it would be nice for Marvel to have all of their characters. Well, I could care less what happens with any of the rest of it.
Just actually, you know what? I'm to that point too. I don't care. No, actually, this is not the first thing Disney has done. I mentioned this on the FWAT show. I can't remember if it was this week or last week, about how, this is June, right?
I believe it is.
And Disney owns ESPN, and the first 55 articles on ESPN, only 4 of them actually mentioned baseball, and it's baseball season. How can golf, fine. Tennis, fine. FIFA World Cup, yeah, okay. Football, no. It's not football season. It is baseball season. There was nothing about games.
So that's part of the bigger problem, and obviously we're going way off the path.
We really are.
Movies.
Well, ESPN is television, and we cover television. We don't color the television.
And baseball is struggling because attendance is down,
which is a shame.
The teams are really turning much more into the haves and the have-nots than they have in a long, long time.
And no one wants to participate in the home run derby because, frankly, it got boring back in 1996.
That's also a problem.
It is.
It's a big problem. Even Ichiro won't participate, and he's maybe retired. It's like, come on, Ichiro. We all know you can smack him out in batting practice, and that's what this is. So
exactly.
To throw us a bone, dude.
So
anyway,
see problems. That's the point here. There are problems. For example, there are lots of problems in another Disney-owned project called Star Wars. See, that's my really long, drawn-out, bizarre segue to get to this. The Last Jedi, right? Lots of people thought it was good. A lot of people thought it was not. And now there is a big fan campaign that has raised already $14.8 of the $200 billion it's going to need to remake it. Have you seen this? This is
I have read about it, yes. It is ridiculous.
It's not going to happen.
No, it's not going to happen, and it's ridiculous. And I was going to say it's stupid, but it's not stupid. But it is ridiculous. It's like, okay, so you didn't like the movie. It's like,
You know what you can do? How to
Too
make
bad.
that movie better, to me. Make a fan cut version of that movie.
Right.
And the fan cut version cuts out Poe, Finn, and I have nothing against Rose other than the fact that her character was part of the useless storyline that went nowhere. We spent 45 minutes following them to right back where they started from. Oh, joy.
You know, I will say in defense of the character of Rose, she was by far the most interesting of these new characters. Well, Daisy's interesting, but
I thought Rose was more interesting than Daisy.
Blanche
and Dorothy are good too.
Compared to Finn and Poe is like they're almost ciphers. I mean, they're just placeholders for the plot action.
Yeah,
and that's the biggest problem for me. Obviously, not for most people, because
how many billions of dollars is it making?
It appears that a few people are going to see these movies, even as we've said, Solo, which has been not a hit, I guess is the best way to put it. It in terms of Star Wars films, right. It's doing well at the box office compared to almost anything else.
It's made more than Chitty Chitty Bang Bang.
That's true.
I don't know why the hell that came to mind, but they were.
But compared to the compelling characters that were in the first, or as I like to think of them, the real Star Wars movies,
right?
I really don't care what happens to any of these characters because they're all just kind of blah. And if they're not blah, they're horrifying to watch. I mean, Kylo Ren, really? That's a terrible character. Yeah. Unless you're doing an angsty teen dramedy, he would fit that kind of a thing excellent. He would be perfect in some CW series. But that's just an awful character. And he's supposed to be the inheritor of Darth Vader. Really? That's god awful.
No.
So the rumors, and I'm sure you're about to get that, there are rumors going around about what Disney is thinking of doing with the Star Wars things, and they're probably not true. But I kind of wish they were.
So do I. The main rumors being that Lucasfilm and Disney and all the Star Wars people are putting all Star Wars movies apart from Episode 9 on hold. That story came out Tuesday, was announced Wednesday, reiterated on Thursday. Friday, no, they're not doing it. And now I think they are one step away from being kicked off our show. Because that was our thing. Going back to baseball, 3 strikes, you're out. That is twice in a week that you have waffled on this. Ego is going to sue you. And, I mean, come on. It's like we don't talk about the Batman anymore because they can't make up their minds what they want to do with it.
But we will.
Well, if there's actual news about it, but there isn't this week, so there.
Oh, surprise, there is. Kind of.
Well,
rumored. Anyway, back to Star Wars.
Meanwhile, actually, you know what? That's enough of Star Wars. They fouled it back into the glove. That's a 3rd strike. Enough of you.
I care less. I'll just say this. I didn't really care to see Solo's beginnings. I mean, I went to see the film, and it was enjoyable, as both you and Lee said. It's a fun movie. But it still didn't need to be made, because my thoughts of what I pictured for the beginning, for his early, were much better than that movie.
And the books were so much better. And I'm not knocking any of the actors.
If that had not been Han Solo, if that had been a different character, I would have found the movie more entertaining. I had to just disconnect thinking of Harrison Ford because very few actors have that quality.
It's Steve. It was Steve Solo.
Yeah, that would have been better. Again, it's entertaining. I'm not saying don't go see it. Go see it. It's a fun movie. But it's not a movie that needed to be made, and that's showing up in the box office compared to other Star Wars movies. Do we need to see Boba Fett? Nope. I mean, I didn't need to see Han Solo. I sure don't need to see a movie about Boba Fett.
I think Boba Fett could actually be a more interesting movie than Han Solo.
It could be because we don't have that preconceived notion of what the character's like, but I don't care.
Well, I'm saying have it be, post-Salak pit, because he can get out of it. He's wearing a rocket pack. He can fly out of the mouth of the thing he fell into in Return of the Jedi, go from there and follow him getting bounties on people. turn it into it could be almost a crime drama thing set in the Star Wars universe.
It could be, and I still don't care.
Well, I mean, that would be better than going back and what happened after Mace Windu cut off his dad's head in front of him and stuff.
That would be better. But you know what would be even better? Is not doing anything with them at all.
Yes.
And just go forward and tell new stories instead of going back to old characters. And actually develop interesting new characters. Like, I don't care what happens with Finn and Poe and the rest of them. It's like, they're just not interesting. It has nothing to do with the actor.
I'm waiting for someone to do a fan edit of the movie and remove Poe Dameron and replace him with Poe from the Teletubbies.
I would probably go see that at the theater, actually.
That would be fun. Speaking of other Disney properties,
yes,
from Seattle's Comic-Con, Tom Holland. Wow,
the man who can't shut up.
Incapable of. All right, Tom, we're going to tell you a secret. Don't tell Tom Holland secrets. I watched the video that he put out this morning saying that he's not entirely sure what's going on with the Avengers movies because he's dead, but he got the script for the new Spider-Man movie and held it up. And it's on his iPad or whatever tablet he happens to be using. And it says quite clearly in logo form and everything, Spider-Man Far From Home. The title of the movie that you are absolutely not supposed to release, Tom. Oh, look, there it is on his iPad in a video he's releasing. Well done, Tom.
At this point, I have to think that that's just a setup because we all know that his greatest power is the power to disseminate information, which is not supposed to be distributed at all. It's like it's got a reverse Spidey sense. Surely this can't be legitimate, although it's if it is a setup, it's a great setup because it's done very well, and that title sounds very much like that could actually be the title.
It fits with what we know about the movie so far,
right?
You know, being filmed in Burma or wherever they're going.
Right, 4 or 5 different locations around the world, and it does have a tie to Homecoming. And Marvel will have to change the name of the title if that's it, just because. And I don't know, maybe Tom Holland will never get a script again until the day of shooting, and it'll just be for that hour.
Yeah, I love how they did that in Avengers, how they wouldn't give him an entire script. They just went, here are your lines. Thou art not allowed to read any others. Ooh.
Regardless of whether it's a work
but or what are they saying to me? It doesn't matter, Tom.
Or if it's real, you got to love it. I mean, it's hilarious, and it's very much a Peter Parker kind of thing to do.
It is.
So, I mean, more power to you, Tom Holland, whether you're really just a goofball or whether this is a very elaborate setup. Either way, it's great.
Other things that are great, because I think this next one is brilliant and overdue. And some people think that this next series...
The Jabba the Hutt movie?
No.
Oh,
thank
good.
God. We already see Donald Trump on a regular... Oh, sorry, wrong show. Some people think that this series has been overdone, but it hasn't been done recently, and there are more stories you can do with it. CBS has signed Alex Kurtzman to a 5-year deal to develop more Star Trek stories, including, and I love this one, and I think a lot of people will too, bringing back Patrick Stewart to come back as Captain Picard, or possibly Admiral Picard.
He would be admirable, yes.
in a Next Generation era TV series. I would love that, because Star Trek was a series that they didn't end it because it was canceled. They just went, we're all tired. And so they ended the series. It could have kept going. It could still be going today. Because the universe is infinite. This is a Universal show. It's a Paramount show. Universal is a completely different company. But I love the idea of, seeing more Patrick Stewart, Jean-Luc Picard stuff.
I'm down with it if they bring back Q.
Absolutely.
Not constantly.
Just a side note.
Yes.
My daughters, and I'm tying this together, which is terrifying. My daughters love the My Little Pony series, on which John Delancey, who played Q, plays essentially the same character on My Little Pony.
Oh my God.
Which is somewhat terrifying. I don't know what.
I was just gonna say that's terrifying.
He's like part dragon, part goat. I mean, anyway.
Meanwhile, that is Q then, isn't it? Part dragon, part goat.
It really is. And you listen to him and you go, "Oh, that's Q." What the?
That really does define the character, doesn't it? Part dragon, part goat.
Wow.
That's awesome. I'm. Star Trek will probably come up again later in this show. So I have not finished all of the latest series. Discovery. But it's been interesting because there's so much to watch, basically, is why. But I have enjoyed what I've seen so far. I like what they did. I especially appreciated the appearance of a fine actress who disappears from the series rather abruptly because it works for the story. I hated the fact that she disappeared from the series because she's awesome, but it absolutely works for the story. And I like when movies or TV shows have the guts to show a major character and suddenly, oh, guess what? That's not who the show or the movie is about. Because then all the bets are off and you really don't know what's going to happen. So I really appreciate that they had the guts to go with that. So
I know exactly what you're talking about, and it is a bit. The one thing I've been disappointed about in that series because I wanted there to be more of her.
Oh, absolutely, but I can see why they did it, and precisely because of that. Because now it's like, okay, maybe I don't know what's going to happen, and that opens up so many more possibilities. I kind of wish they'd done it with somebody else, no one in particular, but I just hate not having that particular actor on screen more. But
yes.
Anyway, on to other
things. Wanted to ask you and Lee this, but Lee didn't bother to even call into the show this morning.
I'll answer for Lee, and I'll answer in a stupid tone.
That's actually going to be appropriate for this. You guys have been high on Josh Brolin for a while because of Cable and Thanos and even Men in Black 3.
Yes.
What did you... And I had actually forgotten about this movie. What did you think of him in Jonah Hex?
I was just going to say, and Jonah Hex. Jonah Hex is a pretty crappy movie, but he's good in Jonah Hex. I like him in Jonah Hex.
Just a weird thing. I was reminded of that movie again this week and went, I had forgotten that existed.
It's actually almost too good to fit in with the current Warner Brothers movies, which is awful because it's not a good movie. But Josh Brolin is great in it. I mean, he did a really good job as Jonah Hex. I thought they did a good job with the character. It's just the whole setup is just kind of... And Jonah Hex, to me, was never... I mean, it's just such a strange character. And sometimes those work for me, like Solomon Grundy. Awesome character.
I always liked Solomon Grundy.
Yeah, he's a terrific character. Why Warner hasn't done like 7 solo movies with Solomon Grundy at this point is beyond me because God knows they're making some weird choices. But yeah, Jonah Hex is just kind of out there. But yeah, Brolin was great in that.
See, I'm glad you said out there because I want to tell you about a movie I watched this week.
Please do.
And it was out there, and then it came back. Now, this is a movie that it's originally Korean, just released this, I think it was this past week, maybe the week before, in America. It's Korean anime, which I had never seen Korean anime before that I know of. It was a movie called The Satellite Girl and Milk Cow. And I said, you know what? Just the two of those things in the same title do not sound like they belong together. And they don't, but that's okay. But just on the title, I went, all right, I'm going to have to see this. So let me give you the first 5 minutes. Hopefully you're sitting down. If you're driving, pay attention. Don't...
I'm ready.
Buckle in. Here we go. Our story is about a 27-year-old guy, and we get the name, or the age, which is very bizarre. A 27-year-old guy who wanted to be a singer. And he actually got fairly far in something similar to Korea's Got Talent. At least that's the way it got translated. But his girlfriend left him while he was auditioning for a show while singing a song about her, and it broke his heart. And because of that, a black cloud transformed him into a Holstein cow. Meanwhile, a spy satellite called KitSat-1 that had just been made obsolete heard his song and decided to come to Earth to find out what it's like to be human. Now, it saved the cow who was being chased by a large black incinerator through the woods, and it's somehow the collision of the satellite and the incinerator, along with the assistance of Merlin the magician, who has been turned into a roll of toilet paper, somehow turned the satellite into a girl. Merlin was explained as he fell asleep under a tree that was then cut down and turned into toilet paper, so Merlin became a roll of toilet paper with a little beard and hands too. Fine. During the transformation of the satellite, the cow ran away because he's no longer being chased by the incinerator. He's being chased by a guy with a magic plunger who had just killed a zebra with a plunger by plunging its liver out for resale. The cow escapes back to his apartment where his dog is inexplicably doing the dishes. Wearing dish gloves. Okay.
That's smart. Got to keep your paws moist.
This is the first 5 minutes of the movie, and you're kind of going, what the hell's going on? What? I don't get this. Later on in the movie, yes, there is a scene where the guy needs money, but he can't get money because he can't get a job because, well, he's a cow. So, yes, KitSat milks him and sells the milk. Just letting you know that scene exists. This movie is so bizarre, and it is not quite up. It's not Studio Ghibli quality. I'll go ahead and tell you that. But it is really bizarre and a lot of fun, actually. The one disappointing thing is we never get a good story on the dog. It doesn't just do dishes and housework because it dusts throughout the rest of the film. There's a scene where they're trying to get away from the plunger guy. And so, quick, everybody get in the car. Wait a minute, who's driving the car? It's the dog. The dog has stolen a car for them. What? They never explain. It couldn't be another person. No, it's the dog that steals the car. And there's a bit of disappointment that the credits aren't translated as well. They're still in Korean. So near as I can tell, for example, KitSat was voiced by stick figure circle vertical line with right perpendicular stick, small circle with right hook and a vertical line.
That sounds. I've seen that person's work.
I have. Really good.
One quick question for you.
Go right ahead.
Is it subtitled or is it dubbed? It sounds like it's subtitled.
It is both.
Okay.
I watched it in Korean and subtitled it because usually when they go over to American voice actors,
I do
it doesn't do as well.
I do the same. I did a quick jump to IMDb, and unbeknownst to me, and apparently you, that this is a pretty big deal in Korea. They have a burgeoning anime industry. Some of the other pretty well-rated titles are Sky Blue, Yobi the Five-Tailed Fox, Clockwork Girl, and some of these apparently have pretty decent casts. Like the Clockwork Girl, the English language cast includes Carrie-Anne Moss, Brad Garrett, and Jeffrey Tambor. So they have some decent people working on some of these flicks. So
they do.
And these are all they're all like 6.8, 6.9, 7 on IMDb, which is really good. The House, Green Day. So this opens up a whole new avenue for me beyond Studio Ghibli and other Japanese anime flicks. So very cool.
Studio Gonzo has got some good stuff too, just to throw that out. But yeah.
I will have to seek out. One thing that really intrigues me about this, almost more than anything, is why is it called The Satellite Girl and Milk Cow? Like, it seems more like it'd be Satellite Girl, like a person's name, and The Milk Cow, but instead it's...
there's only one girl one satellite that gets turned into a girl, and allegedly the black cloud, which is also never explained, at least to me, sufficiently, is that people who have broken hearts get turned into animals. And the incinerator, which it's a big black incinerator, that's all, with one eye, goes around and eats the animals. So there may be more than one cow, but the only animals we actually see are this one cow, the zebra at the very beginning of the movie, and the dog, which doesn't. The dog may be another victim of the black cloud. I don't know. They didn't say.
Could be, since it's doing dishes and it wears the gloves.
It wears the glove. It drives hot wires and steals a car. It's
that's pretty
very
sharp.
Impressive dog.
Apparently, MacGyver was taken over by the monster. Almost sounds like a Stephen King thing. That's interesting.
It ends up, there's some very comedic bits to it. There are some very touching bits to it. There are some really freaky bits to it.
Funny, freaky, and touching. That everything you could want in a movie.
It's such an utterly bizarre movie, but it's worth watching, I think.
Did you just really say that?
Utterly?
Utterly? Yeah.
Yes, I did.
Nice.
I've been saving that all week, going, I've got to throw that in somewhere.
That was funny and touching and weird.
Utterly bizarre. Thank you. Moving on a bit to other things that are, well, this next story is something that used to be animated. Now it's not. It's live action, but not for long, apparently. Stephen Amell, who plays Oliver Queen on Arrow, has asked the writers of that show, which is coming up on its 7th season, to write it like it's the last season. That doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be. And I think Arrow, of the DC TV series, which are better than the movies, I think Arrow is probably doing the best of them. Although Flash has a lot of fans, there are some characters on Flash that just irk me. I know Iris is a main character, but I would like her so much better if she was someone else. I digress. Any thoughts on Arrow leaving?
Since I don't watch it,
nope.
It doesn't really affect me. But I can see why he would like to have this moving along, strictly because, this is an interesting little demographic. In the 18 to 49 demographic, which of course they all want, Flash is far and away the best performer on the CW. Yep. And Arrow is all the way down in 7th place on the CW, among the CW things. So maybe that's why, one of the reasons.
Well, it's 7th place, 7th season's coming up.
There you go. That's a pretty doggone long run too. So
yeah, that's good for a series.
And I can imagine he probably wants to be freed up for some film work, because why wouldn't you want to be freed up for some film work? Whether he'll be able to make that transition,
I think he should. I mean, he did good in the Ninja Turtle movie. Never mind, I'll forget I said that. You never know. With people can be awesome TV stars and just for whatever reason just doesn't work making the transition over to film. So I like
he certainly deserves. Yeah, he certainly deserves the shot. Yes. So good luck to him on this. If I assume that's what, or maybe maybe the goatee is scratchy now that he's finally getting to wear it.
Well, actually, another DC character who didn't translate well after his show, which is kind of disappointing because Lois and Clark was a good show, I thought. A different take on Superman, where Superman was played by Dean Cain, whose career, he did like America's Funniest Videos or something like that for a while, which I'm considering a downgrade. Now he's not even in acting at all. He has been sworn in this past week as an Idaho State police officer. Wouldn't have expected that.
That's interesting.
I just caught that last night and went, really? Oh, that's why I haven't seen him in a while. Very odd.
He has moved on to other things. That is odd.
Speaking of moving on to other things, and this is actually a DC character. It's also a biblical character, but we're being picky. Lucifer was canned by Fox, but has been picked up by Netflix.
Of course.
Which made my wife very happy because she really liked Lucifer.
I liked the season and a half that I saw of it. I think it's a very interesting take. The actor whose name escapes me at this time, because
here,
which is okay, but I really like him. He's very, very good, and it's a very interesting show. So that's cool. Eventually, I will take the time to catch up on it, but I'm glad to see that it was picked up, which sounds kind of weird considering I haven't watched it in like a year, but just ain't enough time. So yeah, that's cool.
No, not enough hours in the day to watch all the things because there are some things we'd like to see, like, Lucifer Morningstar, played by Tom Ellis. See, that was a delaying tactic. But yeah, that not enough hours in the day, especially for things like a show called The Conners, which is supposed to be the spin-off of Roseanne, only without Roseanne. It's ABC is looking hard at it and thinking about doing it. And I saw this, and two things struck me about what I saw this morning, actually. One was that Roseanne herself wished the cast the best of luck in all their future endeavors. I say that for a reason. Big Cass was released from the WWE this week and was not future endeavored. They just said he's gone and we're happy about it, which is very strange for wrestling. I have no other show to throw that in, but there it is. Do you have any care at all to see the Conners as I didn't want to see them on Roseanne, really.
No, because I never really cared for the show, although mainly it's because I didn't really care for the character that Roseanne played. I've never really cared for her as a stand-up. I don't think she's all that funny, which had nothing to do with her politics. That was long before anyone knew what her politics were. She just doesn't particularly appeal to me.
Pre-anthem crotch grab.
Yeah, that was not the greatest thing. And to ensure those few conservative fans we have that I'm not saying that because I don't like her politics.
Talking to you, Steve.
Kathy Griffin, who obviously is somewhat on the liberal spectrum, man, I hate her comedy. I would watch Roseanne twice before I watched Kathy Griffin. She flat out sucks as a comedian, I think. So has nothing to do with politics. Anyway, yeah, I don't really care about the Conners coming. I mean, I'm happy for those people since they all lost quite a bit of money because of stupid comments by the star of the show. So good for them. But I'm not going to be watching it, but doesn't matter to me. So good for them, but it doesn't affect me. Because even if this was our full-time gig, as you just said, there's not enough time to watch all the shows we really want to watch. Like, nah.
And this is not one of the shows we want to watch.
Yeah, there you go.
But there is a show my wife would like to watch that is open to revival because everything is coming back. And I know it's one of your favorite actresses. I know it's one of Lee's. Fran Drescher might be coming back as the nanny. I saw that and immediately thought, you guys are going to love it. No, I'm kind of kidding. I will say that my wife enjoyed the show The Nanny mainly because she was a nanny for a while. And I preferred The Nanny greatly to Roseanne. But,
I didn't particularly care for the show, but I like Fran Drescher. To me is funny. So good for her.
And Niles the butler was awesome. Best part of the show when he was, they doing a scene, he'd walk by, say something snarky, and you'd go, "That was funny." That would work. Let's see, another channel. Click. MTV, which I'm not sure I've said those letters in that order on this show ever before. Is bringing back some stuff that
Liquid Television. Ooh,
that would be cool. I would like Liquid Television to come back.
So of course it won't be that.
No. They're bringing back The Real World. Do not care about that.
God, I knew it's going to be The Real World. Oh my Lord, that's DS.
They're bringing back Daria, which I know is popular, but never my thing because I'm not a teenage girl. And the one that caught my eye, and this is kind of Liquid Television-ish, Liquid Television-y. They're making a live-action Aeon Flux series.
That is interesting.
Which, if you remember I liked it. I liked Aeon Flux on Liquid Television. Not when they made the animated series by itself. The Liquid Television ones where they were just shorts.
Yeah, they were very trippy.
Up to, I think the longest one was maybe 6 minutes long, and the main character died at the end of every episode. But this live action version is going to be produced by Gail Ann Hurd of Walking Dead fame, who also produced the Aeon Flux film with Charlize Theron. So apparently they didn't learn that that's not the way to go with it. I guess. I don't know.
Or maybe
what are
she
your
figured
thoughts?
out, or maybe she figured out the right way to go with it. Yeah, okay. I'm not going to just sit here and wait and like with bated breath.
Gosh.
Yeah. However, if Fran Drescher is in it, okay, then I'm in. That would be awesome.
Fran Drescher is Aeon, right? Yeah, that's a lot of reboots that most of which I don't think we want.
No,
but
not really.
Are any reboots that you would like this week? Just to
I would like
we're in that area.
Beavis and Butthead.
Oh no,
live action, and
we already have Trump and Pence. We don't. I'm sorry.
and I'm trying to think of. Because Chris Hardwick, who interesting things are coming out about that whole situation, but Chris Hardwick must, of course, play Beavis because he would be perfect as Beavis.
and
I've got
Wheaton.
it. No, not Will Wheaton. Butthead has to be played by Josh Brolin.
Oh, God.
So, anyway, no, it would be someone not Josh Brolin, obviously, but I could go for it, a live action, just like it would have to be so over the top. It would be just insane and stupid because otherwise, why would you do it? So I could totally see that. Just like 5 shows, 6 shows tops. That's it. And they're like 15-minute shots. They're done.
And be done with it.
It
sounds almost like a trailer.
Doesn't
Something
it?
that quick. That's as close to a segue as we're going to get this week because I tried looking for new trailers of new movies that are forthcoming, and I didn't see any that I hadn't already seen before.
I saw a couple trailers that I had not seen before. One that was, I'm not sure if it's interesting. It piqued my interest for one reason, because of one actor that's in it. It's called Tao. It is a horror sci-fi flick about a sentient house. Basically, this guy has created this thing as an experiment. He traps people in the house. It seems very much like the show, like the movie Cube, which of course came Cube 2, and then it went on and on and on from there.
And
but
Gleaming the Cube, which was the best of the sequel series.
That would be awesome to tie that in. But the interesting thing about and really the only interesting thing, because the trailer just looked pretty derivative, is like, yeah, we've kind of I kind of saw this in the 70s with Demon Seed, although the effects are better in this one, is Gary Oldman plays the voice of the AI. That piqued my interest, because that could be entertaining.
That almost makes it good just on its own.
Exactly. That's the only reason it was interesting. Other than that, it just looks like, yeah, okay, maybe. The other one that really looked interesting to me is and it's going to be, well, it's probably going to be a small film, but it depends. This is the kind of movie that could turn out to be much bigger at the box office just because of how it's going to appeal to people. It's called Welcome to Marwen. It's based on a true story, and actually based on a documentary called Marwen Call, and which I've seen 3 times. It's a weird movie, but really fascinating. It's a guy who was brutally beaten, suffered brain damage as a result, and suffers from a lot of social anxiety and stuff. But the way he basically gets through the day and communicates with people is he builds little dioramas, and it's all set in this mythical town of Marwen. And it's set in World War II, and he casts himself as this soldier / espionage agent. And the Nazis are constantly fighting with him, and the townspeople constantly help him. And he's created this bizarre world filled with action figures, and this is how he relates to people. And then anyone he knows, they become part of the story. He makes little models of them. And it's just such a weird, cool, strange story, Marwen Call. Welcome to Marwen is a fictional take on this, but basically it's just a retelling of the documentary with a couple of changes. The biggest change is that Steve Carell plays the lead in this, so he is the guy who takes the beating and kind of retreats into this fantasy world that also doubles as his only connection to reality. The other change is that there are parts of the movie where he inserts himself and his friends into this weird little fantasy world where you'll see action figures in stop motion, but with Steve Carell's face on it talking. It looks totally bizarre and really, really cool. And it comes out in December, which there's only one reason you release films about damaged people in December, because you're hoping for Oscars. So Steve Carell, there's not a whole lot of to base this on from the trailer. He's in the trailer a lot, obviously, but still, it's just a short trailer. Steve Carell is going to get nominated for an Oscar for this, I guarantee you. And probably for good reason, because he is an excellent actor. He doesn't get much chance to show it usually, because usually it's just comedic roles. But Foxcatcher, not a happy movie, but a really good movie, and he's awesome in it. He's going to be great in this movie because it's such a weird story about a really weird but extremely interesting guy. So I'm really, and again, this isn't coming out until December, but Welcome to Marwen is going to be just a fascinating movie. It might be awful because it's just going to be really, really out there. But again, they're trying to do something really different. So I'm really looking forward to Welcome to Marwen. Towel is like, the only reason to watch it is like, well, Gary Oldman's going to sound cool. But other than that, it looks pretty, by the book. But Welcome to Marwen is going to be a really different kind of movie. So I'm really looking forward to that. And Marwen Call, Marwencol. I'm sure it's available for streaming because it has been for a few years now. A really interesting movie. But Welcome to Marwen is just going to be hopefully great. It will certainly be different. So cool. Really looking forward to that.
Well, we have now come to the part of the show where it was Lee's turn to do the greatest TV program of all time of the week.
Filthy Dog
didn't show up. Fine. I get it. So I did it last week, so I nominate you.
I accept the nomination, although I really shouldn't run. I should be like LBJ and run and scurry. For this week, my favorite TV series of all time for this week is My Mother the Car. No, actually, it's not. Although that's an actual series.
That's a show.
That's a show, and it was speaking of really weird concepts, Jerry Van Dyke, Dick Van Dyke's brother, played a guy whose, I believe it was his mom, was reincarnated as a 1924 Pierce Arrow, an antique car. And you thought
Shot by Stephen Amell. No.
And you thought Mr. Ed was a weird show. It's like had nothing on this show. Anyway, no, my favorite is Star Trek, and I'm talking about the original series. And yes, I like the Next Generation and various iterations, but Star Trek kicked it all off. And we've talked about the original series, or TOS, as you'll see it noted on the interwebs. Just groundbreaking in so many ways. It had a huge budget for the time, $100,000 an episode, which was just enormous.
Ridiculous
for the 60s. 67? Can't remember now if it was 67 or 66. 66. There you go. And I'm a little older than Rob, so this is in my wheelhouse because I was watching TV when this thing first came on. And
I was non-existent.
There you go.
Came out.
There you are. But the production values showed on the screen. I mean, for the time, it was just amazing. I mean, it had terrific special effects. If this had been in a movie theater, it would have been, wow, like, this looks great. They got their money's worth out of the effects, even though in some cases, some of the tools that they used were actually salt shakers that they had picked at boutiques. They used what worked.
Bones, scan that person and tell me their medical history. I've got a salt shaker. Let me make a special effect noise in the direction.
But the model working was excellent. The makeup for the time was really good. One of the problems that for some reason has continued to carry over throughout the entire universe is there were an awful lot of humanoid aliens. The reason they did that back then, budgetary considerations. It's really hard to make aliens that aren't basically human-shaped when you don't have a huge budget. For whatever reason, they've stuck with it through tons of movies, and there's no reason for that. That was a short segue. This is the only thing I didn't like about Star Trek Beyond is, like, really? Can we get better aliens than just makeup? I mean,
they did explain that a bit in a Next Generation episode.
I don't care. You know, I know. It's there have been far too many science fiction stories where they realize, oh, you can have sentient beings that don't look just like people with makeup. So
they didn't have a rock.
But they did have the Rock, which was the Hordo, which was by far one of the best episodes. And that's one thing Star Trek did a terrific job of, was preaching, and I don't mean preaching with a capital P, like in a hard way, but preaching empathy and thinking about what you're doing before you act. And had great characters for that purpose. I mean, you had Kirk, who's the captain, who was somewhat on the impulsive side, but knew enough to take counsel from his yin and yang. Spock, who was basically all intellect, although they had some awesome episodes where he did show his emotions, because after all, he was half human, as Dr. McCoy was very happy to remind him of, just to needle him. And then he had McCoy, who was, even though he was a medical doctor, just was almost all ego and impulse and just incredibly emotional. And that group, and then obviously there were other characters too who were very important. Scotty, the engineer, who basically loved the ship more than any person ever, and he loved the ship actually more than alcohol, which said a lot because Scotty drank a lot, including illegal Romulan ale. Sulu,
liver and whiskey.
Chekhov, just God, what a great cast. Nichelle Nichols was a major figure back then, African American actress. The first interracial kiss on television. Oh my gosh, how dare they do that? Sounds bizarre to think of that now, but that was a big deal then. And
wasn't that particular episode banned in Alabama just because they didn't want to show that?
I don't know, but I would not be a bit surprised. So all kudos to Gene Roddenberry, who created the series, which created the Star Trek universe. I mean, it's still going strong. Like Rob said, there's a new 5-season show coming up, and we already have Star Trek Discovery going strong. So just an incredible universe, and the fact that it's all based on exploration and being cognizant that there are differences out there, and then that's okay. Probably a show that needs to be seen now even more than it did in the 60s. In the 60s were some pretty turbulent, raucous times. So it was a great show for its time. It still is a great show. It did get a little silly. Yeah. Like a piece of the action where they wound up in gangster, planet that was basically the 30s gangster land, Chicago. They got kind of bizarre. But some of those episodes, one where Abraham Lincoln is fighting alongside them.
With Zephram Cochrane.
Yes, was a great episode. Some absolutely terrific shows, particular episodes, and even the worst of the original Star Trek shows were still entertaining. Just an absolutely great series, and it was definitely ahead of its time, as we saw, because it took them forever, seemingly, to make a film of it. It was, 10, 11 years later. And so, but they finally got to where they needed to be because they finally had the budget to do the effects they needed to do, and they didn't lose sight other than Star Trek V. Thank you for directing that, William Shatner. Other than Star Trek V, they never lost sight of what the show was really about, because it was never about the effects. It was always about the humanity that you could find in any race at all, whether they were Vulcans or Hortas or whatever. So just a fantastic show. One of my all-time favorite shows, for sure.
I'll agree. And I mean, the groundbreaking concept they had for the bridge crew. I mean, at the height of the Cold War, did not like Russians. There's a lot of racism going on, and there's a black woman and a Russian on the bridge. Mm-hmm. To go with George Takei, who is Asian, there's mystery things there that people don't like. But, there they are, and they're all working together, which was a beautiful thing. And
the alien in the cast, a green tint with devil ears. That was a little out there.
Well, the original story with that, Spock is the only one from the pilot episode to stick around.
Right.
And NBC, who aired this at the time, said, "We love everyone except Spock. Get rid of him. He's too alien and devil looking." And Gene Roddenberry said, "Bite me. He's the only one staying."
Gene Roddenberry said, "Bingo. Thanks for the answer." Right.
Exactly. And now he is. You think Star Trek, you almost think Spock before anything else in the series.
Oh yeah. Well, I wouldn't say almost anything. I mean, I think Spock, that character, and Leonard Nimoy, I mean, his portrayal went a long way towards the fact that why people love that character so much. I mean, that a lot of that was Leonard Nimoy. There is a great documentary about that, and I think what is it? Just I Love Spock.
Yeah.
And for the love of Spock, for the love of Spock, which is awesome. It's actually directed by his son Adam, and it's a great look at Leonard, but also a great look at the character of Spock and how the character changed as it went along. Not as cool as watching the entire show of Star Trek, but if you like the Star Trek show, I really recommend For the Love of Spock. It's a great show, and it really is about how important the show was to a lot of people, and how Spock was important because of how he embodied really what the entire show was all about.
Now, actually, there's one thing, because the original series was kind of rebooted in the recent batch of movies. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you saw this. I think this is one of the greatest TV commercials of all time, starring Leonard Nimoy and Zachary Quinto, however you pronounce it. It's the two Spocks. They're playing 3D chess online, then they decide to go to play golf, and whoever gets to the golf club second buys lunch. So it's new Spock in his Audi versus old Spock in a Mercedes.
I've never seen that.
Look, I mean this sincerely. Look this up. It is actually it's like a 2-minute commercial.
That's awesome.
But it is, and stick to the end. Well, you'll know when to stop. There is a little bit at the end, and you kind of go, yeah, whatever. There's a punchline to this that makes the 2 minutes very much worth it. And actually, I'm going to add a little bit to your series, because it's actually very underrated. It's an underrated Star Trek series, and a lot of people don't even consider it to be part of the storyline, although it is. And that would be the Star Trek animated series, where if you ignore the fact that it's drawn almost in crayon and animated like He-Man was, that's not the point. It continued on with the same storylines.
Yeah.
They got with the exception of Walter Koenig, who they just simply couldn't afford, all the cast comes back.
And how can you not afford Walter Koenig when you can afford all the others?
I don't know.
I mean, what was he doing that he was making so much bank on back then? And I had a feeling you'd bring up the animated show, and I'm glad you did, because that was absolutely just.
And it picks up where they left off.
Exactly, and the scripts were great.
Did you know? I don't know if you knew this, because I didn't know this until I looked it up recently. James Kirk's full name, James Tiberius Kirk. We got the Tiberius from the animated series.
I did not realize that. How cool.
I did not realize that either. That's one of those. Wait, we did? Really?
How cool.
The stories were good. Ignore the art. Pretend it's Doctor Who. Ignore what's actually going on and listen to what's going on.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good way of phrasing it. But yeah, Star Trek, excellent series. Excellent series.
You're right, and the animated was a great follow-up too. Really well written, and it certainly helped that they actually had the cast. I mean, that was a big.
If it hadn't been the cast, I'm not sure it would have worked nearly as well.
Right.
And that, I think, is a good note to end our show on, because I've run out of stuff.
As have I.
Well, that's a good sign then. We do have something coming up next week, though, because it will be the 1st of July. That means we are entering the second half of the year. Therefore, we should have a list of the best movies of the first half of 2018.
And we shall.
So tune in next week. Same bat time, same Trek channel. So there.
Captain, we're losing power in the warp engines.
I think we should be leaving now.
I'm going to go home and sleep with my wife.
And on that unusually harmonious bombshell, it is time to end.
I am very disappointed!
Man, we have a weird job.
It's shameful, but, it's a living.
And like that, he's gone.
Darn, that's the end.